We marched into the valley with fire in our eyes, but the day we took the mountain, I thought of you and I cried. I fell down to my knees and prayed, thank the Lord that I'm still here. For so long, it's been Bibles and battlefields, and all this time I've held you in my heart. And though we're worlds apart, I still hear you. And all these days I've counted down the hours, it's like 1,000 years. All this time it's been Bibles and battlefields. If there's a silver lining to this endless hell, it's the hope that one day this war will end. And I'll be home with you, my dear, holding you near. And for so long, it's been Bibles and battlefields. And all this time, I've held you in my heart. Though we're worlds apart, I still hear you. And all these days I've counted down the hours, it's like 1,000 years. All this time it's been Bibles and battlefields. Oh, I won't give up my love, and I won't give in, and I will hold my ground until I'm back with you again. All this time I've held you in my heart. And though we're worlds apart, I still hear you. And all these days I've counted down the hours, it's like 1,000 years. All this time it's been Bibles and battlefields.
And good evening. Welcome to Bibles and Battlefields History Show. We got a special guest. We've not actually talked face to face, just through the interwebs, text and messenger and emails and whatever else. Eric, how you doing tonight, brother?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Man, it's been a busy day, but I'm glad to be here. Eric's in Texas, I think it is, right?
Texas. I'm in Central Texas, about probably 8 miles south of Cameron, Texas.
I love it. I love it. I noticed Eric's post somewhere out there. I don't remember which social platform. And I don't ever go looking for a guest. Like I don't go look. It just comes to me. So I see a name sometimes. Something pops out. I say I got to contact this person. And you were one of those. And the more I talk to you, the more that I wanted to talk with you and bring you on. And common interest is history, but tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll just talk history. And I think you've been involved. Are you still involved with the reenactments today, or is it something?
I am. Unfortunately, the last 2 years have been a little slow. So a little bit about me. I'm a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. I did 10 years in the United States Marine Corps. I was injured on active duty falling off the top of an F-18 Hornet.
Wow.
And I broke an ankle and herniated 2 discs in my back. And over time, that's parlayed itself into I'm a 100% disabled vet. And sometimes that disability causes issues with the reenacting community. Like the last 2 years, I had to have my left ankle fused, and then I had to have it refused. And so that's cut down the number of events I've been able to attend the last couple of years. But this year's looking up, hoping to be able to be at Jefferson, Texas in May. And Fort Mejia, or not Fort Mejia, Fort Parker here in Central Texas has an event in May. We try and attend those two events, and then looking forward to maybe heading east and going to Cedar Creek in October in Virginia.
Oh, yes. Awesome. Thank you for your service, by the way, to our nation. I love America. I love military. And, you know, all the toil and sacrifice that's, you know, keeps us free, especially our Marine Corps. And God bless them. I'm praying for all the soldiers on those ships over there right now. So hopefully they can all get home safe. But, you know, for me, I loved history, I guess, from really a very young age. I very early on started reading a lot about the war between the states, and I didn't have anybody to nurture that. It was just there was nobody around me. I did have an uncle who took me to I guess it was kind of like a history tourism kind of shop, and he bought me some fake Confederate money one time. And I had that stuff for years, and it just sort of kept helping me along, you know, to think back and the division of our nation. And we had family in the South, family in the North. And so, but I gotta wonder
how many reenactors their love for the Civil War and their initial interest in the Civil War started with that fake Confederate money.
Yeah. I mean, I can still remember that today. And it looked like the old parchment paper, you know, I mean, it was really cool. And that was in Florida. He had moved to Florida. We went down for a visit, and he took me there and bought it for me. And I played that stuff for years. My dad, for Christmas, because he saw my interest, he bought me a plantation house with soldiers on both sides, cannons and all that. I played with that. I was just a little kid. But years later, I really had I read quite a few books, but I kind of got away from it. And then I worked with a guy, and he just come along, and he just nurtured that. He was a reenactor. We started digging and doing research, and it just took off from there. So how did that for you? Did you get this love of history, especially Civil War history?
Well, so my father was also a United States Marine. His last 3 years on active duty ended up being my first 3 years on active duty. So with my dad, we traveled all over the United States. We spent the first half of his career on the East Coast and then moved to the West Coast for the second half of his career. And in doing that, my dad, loving history, we would go to battlefields. We would go to historic sites. We would go check those things out. And, you know, you're a kid and you're looking at a cannon and a plaque, and yeah, it's kind of interesting, but it doesn't put a face to it. Well, my dad, I couldn't have been in maybe the third grade. We were based in Marine Corps Base, Albany, Georgia, and a good friend of his that was also a Texan was heavy into Civil War reenacting, and convinced him to go with him to a reenactment at Andersonville, Georgia. It was the first year they put the Andersonville, Georgia reenactment on. Wow. And hold on one second. It's about to get a little loud. Buddy, go in the house. Go in the house. Give me a hug. Go in the house, buddy. I love you. My next generation reenactor right there.
I love it. They're all the
So anyways, him and I ended up sick the day of the reenactment. So my mom put her foot down and said we could not go and said we were staying home. So my dad and his friend, they rode their motorcycles to the reenactment, did the reenactment for the day, and then they rode home. And when they got back, they decided to come by the house, and they knocked on the door and told my mom to bring us out. And we got to see my dad and his friend in these Confederate uniforms with these old muskets and the gear. And that was my first exposure to reenacting, to what reenacting could be, or to putting a face to that history where those cannons and those plaques had been.
Yeah.
And it was enamored after that. It took me way more than it ever took my brother. And I always said I was going to do reenacting one day. Boy, I could kick myself over the pictures of me and some of the sorry excuses for uniforms I tried to put together back in those early days. I wouldn't be seen standing next to myself now. But you learn. I think you learn over time. And if you get in with a good set of living historians that teach you what to look for, the right ways to reproduce it, the right ways to try and at least make it look period to the time.
Yes.
It helps you grow your persona over your time in reenacting. And I got out of the Marine Corps in 2002. Into May of 2003, I was walking through a local event in Belleville, Texas, and the 11th Texas Dismounted Cavalry happened to be a demonstrator at the event. I met these guys. They took me under their wing. They offered to let us come out to a School of Soldier they were having in June. So we went, and my stepson and I went, and I managed to get a lady that was a seamstress my aunt knew to sew us up a couple of uniforms out of some old gray Navy blankets that I had from active duty. And she sewed us up some uniforms, and we went to that School of the Soldier, and I've been a member of the 11th Texas ever since. It's grown. It's gotten smaller. It's changed. The colonel that we had at that time passed away from cancer around 2012. And I took over the unit as the colonel then at that point, and I've been the regimental commander for that group ever since. We took 22 soldiers and 6 civilians to the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg. That was probably our largest event we ever went to as a group.
Nice.
We're down to the point now where we've got 7 or 8 active members that show up at events. And that depends on weather. It depends on the economy, because right now everybody knows the gas prices are in the toilet. I love President Trump. I think what they're doing overseas right now is absolutely something that should have been done 40 years ago. But it definitely pinches the pocketbook on the economy and makes things a little bit harder to afford. And I've got 4 kids and a wife and a farm, and sometimes I put the pen and paper together, and I'm like, well, we'll have to sit this reenactment out this time, boys, because it's just not going to make it work. And my children I have now, I have a 17-year-old lives here at home with me. I have a 14-year-old nephew that we've adopted and taken on, and then I have 2 4-year-old twins. And they love to go to these events. They love to go put up the canvas and run around at these events where nobody's watching. They think nobody's watching them, but the boys can go to and from Sutler's Row, and we don't have to worry about somebody kidnapping them. You know, the kids run around from camps. My oldest is 17. He's been doing the hobby with us since he was born. I was already in the hobby for several years by the time I met my wife. She started going, and she just loved how he could go and play with these kids from other states. And they didn't know each other's names, but the next year we'd go to that same event and be doggone if those same kids weren't there looking for each other and couldn't remember each other's names, but they knew him when they knew each other when they saw each other, and they're out playing in the creek and throwing rocks and having a good time together again. And it endeared us to the hobby.
Sure. Absolutely.
And as a homeschool family, it even better, because it gives us the chance to view other historic sites along our trips when we go to further events, and put a twist on our homeschooling where the kids actually can see and do things that help them in their understanding of history. Byproduct of it, I have my 17-year-old, my 14-year-old, they are deep history buffs. And not even just American Civil War. We're talking Greek and Roman history. We're talking, the Revolution. If it's history, they just soak it up and they love it.
Yeah, I mean, once you're a student of it and have a love for it, I mean, that's what it becomes. And we're the kind of people that enjoy walking through cemeteries and checking records and stuff. It's going to courthouses and libraries and looking through all these old records we can get our hands on. But I think that's awesome. So what was your actual first event? I don't know if you said, I might have missed it. What was your first event that you did? I know that it could have been living history or whatever. Mine was actually a battle, and I'll describe that in a second. But what was yours?
So my first official event with the unit was that School of the Soldier. However, the first battle, I didn't do any more events with them after that School of Soldier. They had an opening the year of the 140th Gettysburg. Because of weather, Gettysburg Anniversary Committee postponed the event 1 month. And so when it was postponed from July to August, they had some people that couldn't make it that had already paid to go on the event. They got a hold of me. I told them I didn't have any vacation until July, and I couldn't go to the earlier planned event. They called me and said, "Do you have your vacation now?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, I do." And they said, "Well, look, this is what happened." They said, "Would you like to go?" So we bent over backwards making everything happen so that we could go on that event. And I went to the 140th Gettysburg, and that was my first real event with a reenacting group.
What a way
And
to
it was, I'm telling you, I think it was a benefit having come directly out of the Marine Corps. They ended up utilizing me as a corporal during that event because so many of their younger reenactors weren't understanding of what it was to be in a unit. And here I was, it's my first event on the line. I had people that thought I'd been there all along. And I actually had the honor of using a 69 caliber Belgian 1842 musket that actually had a service connection to Gettysburg. And the gentleman that loaned it to me, he didn't have an upper brother rifle loan. He said, "You can use this one. It's an original, but be careful because it only has a single cock. It doesn't have a half cock on it." And I remember going through the inspection line, and when they inspected it, they looked at me, and the guy inspecting me was a Marine Corps Master Sergeant that was there reenacting. And he looked at me and says, "You know, it doesn't have a half cock." And I said, "Yes, sir, I do." And I explained the story with the rifle and showed him the paperwork we had on it. And he said, "You just got out of the Marine Corps?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he says, "Then I'll trust you to use it in the battle." And so I was able to use that for that reenactment. And it was quite an honor being able to walk with that piece of history at that event.
Man, so, I can't even imagine what that felt like. And we know people that's never done it. I mean, it's just something about it. I mean, you just can't, because you're touching history and you're retelling the story, you know. My first one was Resaca. I'd not really done an event. I did about a 2-hour drill getting used to this thing. And for some reason during the practice session, my footwork never got exactly right. So it was a Saturday battle. It was a guy, he just showed up for the event. Me and him didn't jihad too much because I didn't like the way he was talking to me, but I knew it was for safety, but he was making it personal. But a guy finally showed me and I got it. But it was when we were lined up to go out, because you couldn't see the battle the way they brought you in, and I could hear all the cannon and I could hear all the muskets going. I'm telling you, I know my knees were shaking because I was like, wow. I mean, it takes you back. I mean, we could see nothing modern. And the night before, or Friday night, we stayed Friday night. We heard a train come through. We couldn't see any modern things at night, all the campfires going. And I remember the colonel of the group said, boys, this is what it was like, 140-something years ago, whatever it was then. It might have been about 140. But it just takes you back. And the smell of that English tobacco kind of going through the camps. And it's just amazing. And I was hooked. And I got to do several events. I haven't done any in years, but just other things I was busy with. But I do love it. I love, I've done living histories. I've been able to do those on national parks. I've been a part of battles. I was in a great group. And I think for me, besides just seeing what it was, a little bit about what it was like. I know it's not even close, but a little bit what it was like. For me, is seeing a kid light up when you put your hat on their head, or you let them hold your weapon or whatever. You can see that kid. He is instantly, or she, they are instantly all in. And that's what it's about for me.
I had an experience, I have 2 experiences with children that sticks to me to this day. Other than my own kids, of course, watching them go out and enjoy it and do it. My 17-year-old has gone from being that 8-month-old kid in camp to being a toddler tied to a rope so he didn't get too far away, to being the corporal of our unit and being in line with adults that were listening to him tell him what to do. And he's been a corporal on line with the infantry at Cedar Creek for 3 years in a row.
Wow.
And they all thought that he was over 16 years of age, and they didn't care. They said, you know what? He knows his stuff and he's good in the line. They said, we'll listen to him any day.
That's awesome.
And to watch him bud like that was always good. But the 2 children that really touched me, one was a handicapped young man in a wheelchair. He was vocal, but he could not. He had a caretaker. He had to use a toggle to move his chair and all that. And he was so enamored with reenacting, so enamored with history, all full of questions. And I was talking to him, and I just got down on my knees, and I was having a personal talk with him and everything. And he was like, man, this is so, I'd love to be able to do this one day. And I said, it's important that you can be out here and be part of it. He got to sit around a campfire with us and everything. And I gave him I had a Marine infantry bugle on my cover at the time, and I gave him that infantry bugle, and he just cried. He was so glad to have that piece and I ran into him a few years later, and he still had it tagged on his wheelchair, where he's showing everybody. The other one was a young black boy that we had been at a School of the Soldier at one of the events we put on here in Texas, and he was coming in with his teacher. He was being pretty arrogant and pompous, and he kind of, I asked him, hey, I need you to pay attention. And it's like, what do you know? I was like, name somebody in Black history that you look up to. And of course, it caught me off. He said Tupac Shakur. And I mean, I was expecting maybe somebody like Martin Luther King or something. He said Tupac. And I said, okay, Tupac. I was like, I said, what has Tupac done for the Black community? And he couldn't answer me. And I said, look, I was like, there's other people in history, like Martin Luther King or like Frederick Douglass or Harriet Tubman. I said, those people are people that deserve better consideration because they did grand things for the Black people at times where it was jeopardy for them. And here's a guy in a Confederate uniform explaining this to him. And he wanted to know more about Frederick Douglass. I sat down and we talked for a long time about who Frederick Douglass was and what Frederick Douglass chanced to suffer for the time period that he was in and what he tried to do to help with his race. A year later, when I was at that same School of the Soldier, a young man comes walking up to me dressed as Frederick Douglass. And he's like, sir, I bet you don't remember me. And I looked at him and I remembered him right off the bat. I was like, I remember you. I said, well, Frederick, it's a pleasure to know you. And he looked at me and he says, I want to thank you, but I want to introduce you to my father. And his father come walking over, and his father was also dressed as the older Frederick Douglass.
Oh, wow.
And his dad thanked me. He says, my son and I, we rarely talked about anything. He says, we rarely had anything in common. And he came back with these pictures and telling me how this guy in a Confederate uniform explained who Frederick Douglass was. And he's like, I didn't put a whole lot of context to it until I got on the websites and started looking. And he says, and I started learning. And he said, and then my son came to me and says, Dad, I want to do what they do at reenactments, but I want to portray this guy. And he said him and his son started putting the kit together to where they both portrayed Frederick Douglass at different periods in his history.
That's cool, man.
And that meant a lot to me that I was able to start them as a father and son down that road of being able to do that.
Yeah, we were doing a fundraiser dressed in Confederate, and we had flags and we had uniforms, and we were taking pictures, making them look old-timey. And I had a guy, he was standing off the side. He was a big guy, I mean, really big. But he was so shy and hesitant. And I said, would you like your picture? I wasn't even going to charge him. I was just going to give it to him. And he said, no. He said, that's okay. I said, are you sure? He said, well, I'd like to, but I doubt you have anything that will fit me. I said, you let me worry about that. I said, we've got all kinds of outfits here. I said, I'll tell you what, I'm a master at making this look like whatever we want it to look like. I said, we will have things around you. You're going to be holding my rifle. He said, I can hold your gun. I said, sure. So we put flags. We put him a jacket on. We turned him a certain way. He looked like he was stepping off the line, back in 1862.
Yeah.
He looked at that, and I gave it to him, and he said, he went to pay me. I said, there's no charge. And he wept, man. He was like, he just didn't think we would care, and another time we were at Point Park up in Chattanooga, up on the mountain, and we had a bunch of tourists that and they were being a little bit snooty, about it, like, oh, the war's over, stuff like that. And our sergeant said at the time, he said, hey, with this next group, we're gonna do something a little different. He said, we did the firing drill and all that, the marching and all that. But he said at the end, I want to let everybody here tell what they do for a living. And so we did, and you had lawyers, and you had doctors, and you had people that were clergy, you had people that were engineers that went on down the line, and those people's mouths fell open. They thought we were just doofuses, that didn't know anything, uneducated, no intelligence, And they actually came up and engaged with us and said that they appreciated the education because, they were coming from northern states and they just thought, why are y'all doing this? Like, who cares? And we care. It's important to tell history accurately.
I like that. So for veterans, I find as a veteran, we look for that camaraderie that we're missing when we get back off of active duty or come out of the military. We're looking for the brothers that we had, the sisters that we had. We're missing that setting up and doing those military things that we don't get in the civilian world. And we rarely understand folks that have never served in the military. We have a hard time with that transitioning out of the military. And I have found in my time in reenacting that a lot of veterans that end up in reenacting, that's one of their common ground, their reasons for getting into it so heavily is that for them, it gives them that outlook again. It gives them that point of reference in the regular world, that for a weekend they can step back into a uniform and step back into that point, into that type of mindset, and it's clear to them. And that's I ran into Vietnam vets that said it helped them through their PTSD. I've even had some that we encouraged to get into the hobby because they were Operation Enduring Freedom vets that were having issues with things, and they said, look, we know Vietnam guys that we can introduce you to, and they'll come out and they'll meet them and they'll bond on their shared combat experiences, and then they'll give the reenacting community a try, and for them it fills a gap that's always still there.
Yeah, I think that's important. In talking to people that have taken on the challenge to hike the Appalachian Trail from Georgia to Maine is another, or the Pacific Run, or whatever you want to look at. It's also something that challenges them and kind of keeps them connected to that kind of endurance or whatever, and the discipline you need to do something like that. And I can certainly see that with the reenacting community. And do you see today, now I know you said kind of small, but do you see I know you have your son, and praise God for that. Do you see other young people coming along that will pick up that mantle and take it forward?
We do, yes, but not near in the numbers we used to. And I think some of it has to do more with economy. And it saddens me because you end up with a lot of guys at your age, my age, that are getting out of the hobby, and they're trying to sell their old gear like it was brand new again.
Yeah.
They're asking prices that just are unreasonable for used gear. And even for these muskets and stuff, you used your musket to reenact with, you never use it for nothing else. Why are you asking $1,000 for a musket that saw 20 years of use?
Yeah.
If you can get it into the hands of some younger guy or girl, even for that matter, that's going to take it out on the field and that's going to help keep that history alive. Why ask those exorbitant prices? Find somebody that's interested in that history, outfit them, and let them out on the field so that so all this stuff's not sitting there in a closet gaining dust and waiting for you to try and sell it at brand new prices.
Sure. I
100%. It's horrible. And I can't tell you how many times I've also had reenactors that have passed, and their families will come to me and they're wanting to sell this reenacting gear that their loved one had, like it's antiques. And I'm like, these are reproductions. I understand they mean something to your family because they belong to this individual, but you have to understand these reproductions. To an average individual, they don't have that value.
Yeah.
And it's just,
they told me minimum to get in, and that's getting some things used from people, some things new. It's far greater than that today, I bet, but it was around $1,200, and that's bare bones. That was just really shoes, pants, jacket, done.
Oh yeah, today $1,200. Today $1,200 won't even touch a musket.
Yeah, and that's the change.
But it's sad. Think about how many muskets are out there sitting in somebody's closet or sitting there not being used anymore. They're just, we've come across some good individuals. My son has an infield, and this infield was gifted to him by the guy that was our general at Cedar Creek. He got to know Christian over the years as he grew up, and watched him go from being a 5-year-old in camp to when he was a 14-year-old, 15-year-old wanting to walk in the line, and showing him that he knew the stuff he needed to be on that line and earned his place. And our general said, "Hey, I got something for you. I want you to use this in the battle." And then after the battle, he gifted it to him for his he says, "Your birthday and Christmas coming up." He said, "This is my gift to you," and he gifted it to him. And that's what you should see more of, I think, is when you have older people that are leaving the hobby. You've got things that you can encourage these younger folks to come into the hobby and have. Why hold on to it with such steel grip and trying to? You're not going to get that kind of money out of it anymore.
No. When you first started in Gettysburg, that's amazing that you were there, and it may have happened there. When was the first time you had that moment when you're in the middle of a battle and it was like you felt like you were there? Like everything became about the battle, and it just took you back. Seeing the elephant, whatever you want to say. That's amazing to see that happen and to feel that happen. When did that happen for you?
I've had that happen actually more than once, and I'm glad it still happens sometimes, because I was told early on that, you'll be one battle in all your reenacting history that'll come alive and be real for you, and you'll see the elephant. And I was like, man, I hope it's not just once, because that's that. And it was at that Gettysburg. We were at that Gettysburg. We were in the middle of one of the organized fights for it, and I'm telling you, there were so many people around, and there was so much going on, and you just didn't even see the bleachers in the background or any of the non-period stuff off on the horizon. It was so many cannons, and there were so many people on that field, you could almost hear bullets whistle. I mean, it was an experience that just took your breath away. And it's like, okay, it gave you, that first time I went to Gettysburg, I did the reenactment for 2 days. And then on the third day, rather than participate in Pickett's Charge, my stepson, his grandmother, and I all went to the battlefield and toured the battlefield. And we specifically wanted that event the one that happened that was so realistic was Devil's Den in Little Round Top. So we wanted to go there and see the ground and compared to the duration, the distance it happened over, and the amount of time that the reenactment portion took compared to the reality of the battlefield, man, I'd have died. There's no way. You can't make me believe that anybody back then fought one way or the other for just strictly over slavery. They were fighting because of their belief in God. They were fighting over their belief in a nation they were forming, or a nation they were trying to keep unified. That was not one central point. And for anybody to teach history in such a focused point to say, oh, it was over slavery, that is ignoring so much of what those people's emotions and feelings of that time were.
Sure. And that's why this program is called Bibles and Battlefields, is that faith was such a huge part of the battles. And in a way, because of the massive amounts of death and injury, and there were so many young men that were coming to faith, and they were attending church services. The chaplains had a huge role. They prayed. I mean, General Lee on down, he was trying to ensure that there was regular.
Hey, I'm gonna mute my side for a few minutes, because I got a train about to pass me by.
Yeah, you're good. You had so many different people that were, taking the time to minister to these young men. And in 1864, it was the Great Revival in Dalton, Georgia, and there were more people there were not enough churches. They were having outdoor meetings as they stepped off on that, 100 days of battle, because it was such a part of it. And you read all the stories from both sides. You can read the incidents of the Christian Coalition, and you read the Southern histories about the clergy. And all of those stories they'll just grip your heart of young men that were dying on the battlefield, sewing their names in their uniform and tell them to tell their parents, hey, tell them I love them. I'm not going to make it tomorrow, boys, and my time is up. God's taking me home. I mean, it was just amazing to hear all of that and to see all that. It can't be a singular focus. And I've always read that when a lot of when they crossed over the Potomac, that there were some of the Southern side said, I'm not going. You can put me in jail, shoot me. I don't care. I'm here to fight for Southern rights and states, and I'm not invading the North. I'm not going to do it. And I heard I've read they threw their guns down. I don't know in what numbers they did that, but they weren't happy that we were crossing over the Potomac, because they said it's in defense of. And, I just appreciate all sides of it. I mean, you have an economic side. You certainly have, it became a part of it because they made it a part of it, to the cause of slavery. But you had the be able to have a rights to be able to pull out of the Union if you wanted to. All those issues were going on. And of course, westward expansion, what would those states be? The balance of power. It always goes back to power and money anyway. But these young men from these farms, and women, there were some that served, they snuck in, but they were committed to preserving their farm, their life. They didn't want people here that was telling them, coming and stealing from them or whatever. So yeah, it's not just one thing. It never was about one thing, but that's what has become the teaching point for all schools, which is sad.
I think that, so researching, I have ancestors that fought for Georgia. I have ancestors that fought from Kansas. One ancestor anyways. I have ancestors that fought from Texas. And I think it's most unique to me is that my ancestor that fought from Texas, he left here as a 14, 15-year-old boy. He was mustered into the 2nd Texas Infantry. He was a member of the Wagons Fly Train. And at the second day of the Battle of Shiloh, they had lost so many troops on that first day of battle, he was taken off the wagons and put into battle. And you can't tell me that a 14, 15-year-old kid from that time era that leaves Texas and has to walk, ride a wagon, maybe what little train traffic they had, did that all strictly for one reason. He didn't know one way or another whether he believed in slavery. He didn't know whether he believed in the economics at the time. For him, he looked at the ancestors. He had older brothers that were killed at the Battle of the Alamo. He had older brothers that had fought and been wounded, and at the Battle of San Jacinto. He was the last child of 15.
Wow. And
he was born the year that the Texans won their independence from Mexico. So for him, he'd heard these stories growing up, and it was a chance for him to participate in something historic.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, a lot of the young people of that time. We do some living histories around this area. We did one at the library here a few months back where we talk about the aspect of children in that war and what the differences are from now, what we expect of children to what a kid of that time era was expected to be.
Absolutely. Hey, Barry, good to have you on here tonight. Thanks for dropping in. And our guest, Eric, and we're talking Civil War times and reenacting and all that good stuff. And we're going to run out of time here in a few minutes. Now, I hope you'll be able to come back with us because I'd love to dig in and talk about some of the history of the war. And we'll continue. I'd love to continue the discussion, but I don't want to take up all your time. But just are you good for 5 or 10 more minutes? Are you good for that? Or do you need to go?
Yes, sir. No,
okay,
I'm good.
So when you first do you have, besides your own immediate family, do you have anybody else that in your family that ever went into the reenacting community, or was it just you and your children? And
no, I've dragged some in, sometimes kicking and screaming, but I have an adopted brother that did it with me for a couple of years. He prefers more of the biker way of life, and gotcha. he still every once in a while talks about maybe coming back and doing 1 or 2 events with us, but he did it with me for a couple of years. My own brother has done a couple of small events with me to give us an extra person on the line to help us. His son, my nephew, actually did it with me from about the time he was 11 years old on. He went to Shiloh, the 145th Shiloh was his first event. And for him, he found a uniqueness in the fact that our grandfather had been there. And he participated in the hobby with me until he was 18. And then, the way so many young men at the time, they get to 18, they start getting into girls and they getting into doing other things. And they go, his last event that he did with us was the 150 Gettysburg. And he did that one with us. And that was pretty much his last big event. His sister, she participated for a while with us also in the events. I've had a cousin that's come out and be a part of it. Now he's got 3 kids and a wife and never has any time. But while he was going to college at UT, he came out and participated with us on weekends and would go to events just to give him something to do that didn't cost him money running around Austin. And so I've spread it out and I've shown the knowledge of it throughout my family. As far as actually full-blown reenactors, I don't have anybody that still does it other than my own direct family. But it's at least I got that out there, got them to see it or be a part of it and experience something different that they may have never had the opportunity to experience.
You mentioned the Sutler Row earlier, and I absolutely love going to Sutler Row. It was great, and it's been many years since I participated in battles. But what is your favorite when you have Sutler Row? What does you and your family like to visit the most? It's probably different for different ones, but are there some that are out there that, in some big events, I know at Gettysburg, it had to be amazing, but Dirty Billy's hats or whatever, But what, if off the top of your head, what do you like to visit on Sutler Row and maybe your family?
So I will say Sutler Row's changed quite a bit. I mean, the days of having The 140th, 145th, and the 150th Gettysburgs, those settler rows were massive. I mean, 6, 7, 8 rows of tents that stretched, 500 yards and had people from all over the nation with their settler setups there selling different wares. Those were always kind of cool because you got to see so many different settlers from so many different applications, whether it be the ladies or children or just knickknacks or antiques, woodwork. You got to see so much stuff. One of my all-time favorites, and if they're still in operation, I sure hope this plug brings them some business. Pop Jacks. They're out of, I believe they're out of Missouri. They do period sarsaparilla and root beer and drinks like that, and they sell them in a pop cork bottle. And man, that was if Pop Jacks was in an event, that made the event.
Wow.
They would. I mean, I've still got bottles laying around from having bought these bottles and from them and what they have, a green apple jack they called it. Man, that stuff was awesome. It was real refreshing too on a hot day. And if you saw Pop Jacks in an event and you were excited, you're like, yeah, this is good stuff. And there's lots of other settlers that Mercury Settler used to be a big one here in Texas. Tom and Thelma have long since gotten out of the hobby. They've retired and moved on to grandkids and other things. We were sorry to see them go, but we understood. I mean, he'd gone from being a reenactor to being a long-term settler. He had helped with the movie Gettysburg. He was just somebody that was well entrenched in the hobby, and it was sad to see him go. I remember James County Mercantile was another one we used to love to see at events. I haven't seen them too much at events anymore, but they used to come out and they sold a variety of different stuff. And I remember he had a book because it compared pictures from that time period with modern day equivalents of those clothing. And it was amazing. You don't think about the color that existed at that time because everything was in black and white the way it was photographed.
Yeah.
And there were bright colors and mercantile colors and things like that we don't consider when we look at it. And it's just and then also a big difference in the Army of the Trans-Mississippi to the Army of the East and the difference they were able to clothe themselves with and things like that. Sure. Probably a lot more civilian mercantile type stuff in the West. So it was definitely eye-opening to see some of that stuff and to know which settler you could rely on for certain things and stuff like that.
I will tell you, you talked about the pop. I had this idea once for a fundraiser for cancer and also to really highlight reenacting. And so we set up a settler at a Relay for Life event. And I got in touch with a local winery. I went and got some bottles. They donated the bottles. I bought the corks. I cleaned them up. We found a label that we could use of a soldier smoking a pipe, put it on there. And we created out of different things that we bought, just this really good blend of lemonade. And we called it Confederate. And we sold that stuff. And the colored bottles sold the best. I mean, if you had a red or a green or something, the clear, they were like, okay, but I'll still buy it. But they wanted those colored bottles. We sold that for $3 each, and we donated everything, and $1 for a refill. And people would come up, and I actually got donated years ago from Jack Daniel's Distillery. I got actual kegs donated to the event. I had 4 of them, and they'd walk up and they'd smell that booze, and they'd say, "What's in this?" We'd say, "We can't tell you." We just had so much fun with that. It was great. And one thing, and I know that they're looking for. I saw an ad. They're asking landowners here for 300 acres. They want to do the Battle of Chickamauga, so I know that's on the horizon to come. But
I would love to go to that one.
Yeah, they're working on it. One of the things that was high for me was just the greatest thing was I was able to be at the reburial of the Hunley crew, and that was an amazing event. I guess that would be for me. I didn't get to go to Gettysburg, but I did get to do that, and that was pretty doggone amazing. Maybe we'll have to talk about that next time. Barry says my biggest event was Chickamauga in Georgia, but I did Resaca, Tunnel Hill, and a few out of state, Tallahassee, Alabama, and Olustee, Florida. Yeah, Barry, and he's a student of history, does a lot of research, and thank you, Barry, for that. And we're blessed to have a lot of battlefields in the area. My last question for you, because I don't want to keep you too long, and I do hope you can come back. What is the unit you portray? What is unique about that unit that maybe is a little different from other units in the presentation to be historical? Because I'm not familiar, and you'll educate me. What is it? Is there something, a color scheme or something that is unique to that unit?
So the 11th Texas was formed as a pre-war U.S. Cavalry Reserve Guard detachment. It was called the Third U.S. Texas before the war, and it was based in the Forts Chain here in Texas. They were disbanded and reorganized as the 11th Texas when the war broke out, and people from those three companies of what was the Third U.S. Became the 11th Texas, and they took those trained personnel and they feathered them out between all the different companies of the new 11th Texas to train the new people. There's been some speculation they were in a combination of federal gear because the large stores that were captured out of Corsicana and San Antonio at the time, and they were outfitted so quickly, a lot of what they wore may have been federal early in the war. As well as some early State Guard, which was a commutation brown wool with black piping.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty much the look. But one of the things that sticks about it is they didn't surrender. The majority of the 11th Texas, basically they captured a Union supply wagon towards the end of the war that had paroles in it. They forged their paroles and they left. They refused to surrender. They forged their paroles and they came home. They were actually sent and rerouted to go try and escort Jefferson Davis to Texas. When they heard he had been captured, they forged their paroles and left.
Amazing. Didn't know that. That's awesome history. Jess Berry, Hood and Granbury commanded many Texas units in Georgia. There was a big Texas detachment here. The internment of the Huntley crew and marching the parade from Charleston, yes. And I didn't know you were there, Barry. It was only about 80,000 of us marching, so
there were 5 members of our unit that went to that.
But it was pretty amazing. But thank you so much, Eric. Like I said, I want you to get to your family and everything. I know you just got home from wherever you're at today, and I hope you'll come back, man. It just flies by when you're talking shop, as we say. And
Yes, sir.
I try to do the history show every week. You're always welcome back. And go be your family. God bless you, brother. Thank you for your service. And keep on sharing that history, man.
God bless y'all, and you take care too. And I'd be glad to come back anytime.
All right. All right. Take care. We'll drop you down so you can get out. If that
Take
little
care.
boy wants to say hi, let him say hi. We're good.
Oh, it's my daughter.
I hear him.
Say hi. Say hi. Wave at him. Hold on. So that's my oldest. That's my corporal.
There you go. Hey there. We'll have to get them all on here, brother. Hey, they're all welcome.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. Hey, Eric Johnson, I appreciate him coming on. And he's an hour behind, so he was getting home from being out, and we were able to fit it in, and I appreciate it. We've been talking on and off for several months, weeks, and if not weeks, a couple of months. We've been trying to arrange time and just get to know each other. You invite somebody on they don't know, like, what are you up to? What do you want? And just love to talk history. But each week, and I try to do it. I try to do it on Tuesdays. Sometimes it's Wednesdays, depending on what's going on in my life. But we try. Wednesday or Thursday. But we've been really busy lately with a lot of Thursday programming. So Wednesday's probably the better night for it, and music show on Tuesday or something like that. But I have to spin them around. But give us a follow, and you'll see the shows pop up. If you have a love of history, Bibles and Battlefields. We've been doing a look at the Chickamauga battlefield. We got a little bit more left there, then we'll move on to another one. And we appreciate you tuning in. Barry, God bless you, man. It's good to see you. And keep history alive. Keep history alive. And we'll get off of here. We'll be back on later. I've got a couple of shows coming up. But thanks for being here. And we'll play you another period top song called The Girl I Left Behind. Take care. We'll see you next time. Salute. God bless America.
lonesome since I crossed the hill and o'er the moor and valley. Such heavy thoughts my heart do fill since parting with my Sally. I seek no more the fine and gay, for each does but remind me how swift the hours did pass away with the girl I left behind me. Shall I forget the night the stars were bright above me, and gently lent their silvery light when first she vowed to love me? But now I'm bound to Brighton camp, kind heaven, then pray guide me, and send me safely back again to the girl I left behind me. My mind her image full retains, whether asleep or waking. I hope to see my jewel again, for her my heart is breaking. But if ever I should have a chance to go back across the ocean, although my love may be lost to me, I'll find another maiden. Shall honey taste no more, the dove become a ranger, the falling waters cease to roar, ere I shall seek to change her. Each mutual promise faithfully made by her whom woes betide me, and true the last that loves me well, and the girl I left behind me. The brigadier commands the right and guard the ford and river. The main guard charged to attack, the flanking party shiver. The man who wears the stars and stripes, and in the field they find me. I will lay down my life and die for the girl I left behind me. Then may the union be preserved, while love will be the chain, sir. But if any of our rights are touched, I hope that we shall gain, sir. And if I should as a soldier fall, for one of us she'll pine, sir. And may her arms entwine another man like the girl I left behind me.
Early in the morning on the 19th of September, our army set out from Clemore's Cove. Down in Georgia, down by the Chickamauga, and I knew that the fighting was gonna be close. Down by the Chickamauga, by the Chickamauga, down by the Chickamauga, we saw our boys laying in rows. For 2 long days we heard the sound of cannonballs tearing through the trees like a summer rain. For 3 long days we heard the sound of rifle fire making our men scream out in pain. Down by the Chickamauga, by the Chickamauga, down by the Chickamauga, we saw our boys laying in rows. Now when the smoke cleared, there was thousands laying dead. The river ran red with the blood of the brave. Brother fought by my side, and I was there when he died, the day we made our stand at Snodgrass Hill. Down by the Chickamauga, by the Chickamauga, down by the Chickamauga, we saw our boys laying in rows.
marched into the valley with fire in our eyes. But the day we took the mountain, I thought of you and I cried. I fell down to my knees and prayed, thank the Lord that I'm still here. For so long, it's been Bibles and battlefields, and all this time I've held you in my heart. And though we're worlds apart, I still hear you. And all these days I've counted down the hours, it's like 1,000 years. All this time it's been Bibles and battlefields. If there's a silver lining to this endless hell, it's the hope that one day this war will end. And I'll be home with you, my dear, holding you near. And for so long, it's been Bibles and battlefields. And all this time I've held you in my heart. Though we're worlds apart, I still hear you. And all these days I've counted down the hours, it's like 1,000 years. All this time it's been Bibles and battlefields. Oh, I won't give up my love, and I won't give in, and I will hold my ground until I'm back with you again. All this time